Hello, everyone, and good afternoon. Welcome back to our fortnightly Tech Talk Tuesday, where we talk about our FRP solutions and product. If you're joining us for the first time, welcome. But if you're a regular, great to have you back. In today's session, we would talk about the FRP best practices, which specifically would revolve around cutting, drilling, bolted connections, resealing, and handling safety. With a caveat that these are recommended general advice based on our experience. By no means that they are site-specific guidance. If you'd like to talk about a specific project requirement in detail, please feel free to reach out and we'll share our details at the end of the presentation. After the tech talk, we would have a Q&A window open, so feel free to submit your questions. Jumping right into it, the most frequent question which we get asked is how and what is the best way to cut FRP on site? Should I?
Just go to non-sexual. Just check.
Is this fine?
I'm not seeing you.
Wait, I'll have to do it again.
Don't go.
Perfect. Sorry, guys, a bit of a technical glitch over there. I think to start with, the most frequent question that we get quite oftenly asked is what is the best way to cut FRP? And in our experience, the most recommended way to cut FRP is through diamond blades. And the reason for that is because the cuts are cleaner. There is not a lot of fraying. There's minimum heat generation, and the aesthetics and the finished appearance is just better. Ideally, one must use a continuous rim braids, which is similar to a tile blade rather than a segmented concrete blade. Now, segmented concrete blades tend to leave or chip rough edges. Friction of these discs can generate excessive heat, potentially softening and also leading to charring of the resin, which might not be the ideal way of finish that one must be looking for. Suitable tools that one can use: circular saws, angle grinder, reciprocating saws, jigsaws, and anything that can be retrofitted with a diamond tooling. One can also use timber or aluminum blades, but because of the embedded glass fibers and the strengths that the glass fiber contains, the blades might get frequently blunt, which may mean that you may only get a few good cuts before the performance starts significantly dropping and you'll have to replace them frequently. Wet cutting is also permissible and recommended for dust control or cleaner work conditions. However, ensure the equipment is rated for wet operations to avoid any electrical risk. In our factory, we typically use a CNC with diamond tooling with the 90,000 psi water jet cutting. If you prefer, for most of our projects, we do pre-cut the product and pre-drill it, and that option is always available. But we do understand that often site modifications are unavoidable, especially given public infrastructure projects where last-minute adjustments will have to be made. Hence, these are the options that one can inculcate to incorporate cutting or drilling at site. Now, in terms of drilling, one must use or what is recommended is using a tungsten carbide drill bit. High-speed drill bits can also be used, but they do get blunt quite frequently and would require frequent resharpening. Drilling speed could be similar or adjusted to just as you're cutting hardwood, which could be moderate speed, and please avoid excessive force. From our experience, and this is something that we recommend, FRP should not be punched or shared. If one does punch or shear, that can lead to damage of glass fibers that are embedded in the product, which can have an adverse impact on the structural performance of the product. Always cut and drill using proper cutting tools. Moving on to connections. Now, unlike steel, FRP cannot be welded. Hence, perhaps because it is a thermoset and is thermally stable and it does not undergo plastic welding. The way one can connect FRP is to use bolted connections, which are pretty much standard across the board. For fasteners, one can use 316 stainless steel, galvanized steel, where dissimilar uh, metals has a prerequisite. In in situations where there are extra measures to be taken, duplex or super duplex stainless steel can also be used, but would have a cost implication. There are no electrolysis concerns between FRP and metallic fixings. For FRP fasteners, FRP threaded rods and bolts are available. However, keep in mind FRP bolts have lower strength than steel, hence an upsizing may be required. Also, the spacing and edge distances will have to be accordingly adjusted. In terms of using bolts, one recommends flat washers under bolt heads, flat washers under the nuts. Nylock or lock nuts can be used. Thread lockers such as Loctite is recommended wherever the application involves vibration or is of any concern in terms of vibration. In terms of tightening, they should be snug tight, then quarterly turned. Please avoid over tightening, especially in hollow sections. Torque value do vary by the bolt diameter, material, application, so no one answer for all. We also recommend using anti-crush tubes wherever an SHS or a RHS FRP section is used. This is to prevent deformation during tightening, maintaining load-bearing capacity, and allowing proper snug tightening without profile damage. Without anti-crush inserts, torque control becomes critical and installation is typically slower and more complex. Moving on to resealing, this is probably one of the most important things that gets overlooked and is highly recommended to maintain the larger lifespan that FRP encapsulates. Whenever FRP is cut, drilled, or sanded or altered, the exposed surface must be resealed. That is because once you cut an FRP or drill an FRP, the glass fiber, which is the reinforcement used in FRP, might be exposed. And that can lead to moisture ingress, which over a period of time can lead to water absorption and blistering. So perhaps to maintain the longevity, chemical resistance, and the appearance, one must reseal it, which is typically a very simple process where we also supply an X series sealer kit, which basically is a two-part resin and a catalyst system. And this can be brushed onto exposed area to maintain the longevity of FRP profiles. Proper mixing and applications are essential, and the ratios can be suggested as per our industry experience. Now, working with FRP comes with several advantages, such as everyone knows that FRP is lightweight, non-conductive, and corrosion resistant. However, while cutting the product, PPE must be used. Ears, eyes should be covered with safety glasses, and breathing protection should be used. FRP dust that is generated through cutting is not as hazardous as asbestos, but as we know, inhaling any fine particulate matter is a health risk. So take extra appropriate precautions. We do have a structural fabrication and repair guide, which is available on our website, which covers all of this in great detail, and also a product specific installation manual for products like FRP handrail systems. If that would be of any interest to you, please feel free to reach out to us. We'll be happy to send that across to you. And that's all from our side for the presentation. Please feel free to post any questions that you would have, and perhaps I'll, in my best ability, try to answer them. In terms of degradation mechanism, are we talking about the failure mechanism or just normal degradation? If you're talking about normal degradation, which occurs when it is exposed, it can be UV degradation or it can be a water or a moisture ingress. And perhaps that is why UV fillers and surface veil is highly recommended. Another question is on safety precautions while performing repairs, which is to do with the catalyst. MEKP is one, but there are other catalysts as well, and be happy to send in the MSTS or a spec sheet on that. In terms of end sealing, usually a couple of layers is just fine to re-strengthen the barrier between the glass fiber and the environment. FRP cutting dust is not extremely hazardous, but is equivalent to any normal dust that is there. Hence, yes. Thank you. Yes, there are FRP. Sorry, my computer had stopped responding for some reason. Yes, there are FRP bolts and nuts. The capacity are in comparison to conventional bolts is lesser, and hence that is why an upsize is highly recommended. Yes, we can send in the notes from today via email. And if there is any particular slide where you'd like a detailed download, please feel free to point that out. We'd be happy to prepare a special note up for you. Hi, Dennis. We will send in the installation manual for FRP. And I would be interested to hear the substation and the electrical isolation that you're working on with the rebars. We do offer FRP rebars if that is of any interest to you. Hi, Anthony. We do supply anti-crush tubes. Yeah. Nara, yes, FRP can gratings may be used directly on the ground floor. However, we do recommend certain fixings so that it can control the differential movement between panels. Scott, in terms of standard factor, there is no thumb rule perhaps that one can use, but if you're able to send us a specific case where you're looking to, we'd be happy to give the cadence on how to figure out the nut size. But mostly we recommend stainless steel fixings or nuts and bolt with our FRP system. David, as long as, for your question, as long as there is no abrasion on the coating or the sealant that you've applied to, it doesn't really need frequent recoating. But we do recommend that every couple of years, depending on the application or the exposure, that one does have a visual inspection. And if you can see abrasion, it's better to have a simple coat up. Hi, Ivan. In terms of the FRP repairs for FRP that is incorrectly cut, see if it's been correctly cut in terms of the length, obviously they cannot be joined together. But if there are certain non-major uh, defects or certain impacts that can be corrected, but we'll have to take it on case-to-case basis to figure out whether that's feasible or not. Stuart, in terms of design standard, Australia doesn't have particular design standard for FRP, but globally there are two design standards that are used. One is Eurocomp, which is a British or a European standard. The other one is an ASCE standard, which is American. Both are, I would say, have a major overlap. So one of these, we particularly use ASCE for designing our structural members and applications where FRP is used, such as platforms. And for gratings, there is a standard called ACMA standard that specifies the technical requirement or manufacturing control for FRP gratings. Casper, on clips or fasteners to fasten FRP gratings, we will let you know what we suggest after this call, and I'll directly reach out to you. Thank you, everyone. With this, we wrap our session. If there are any questions that you would have after this session, please feel free to reach out to us, and we'll be happy to assist you with what, however we can. Thank you.